This podcast is part of the Midwest Podcast Network. Find out more about our other shows and how to support our network at midwestpodcastnetwork.com. You are now tuned in to Westworld FM, a podcast about HBO's Westworld. My name is Alex.
My name is Nick.
And I'm John.
Today we will be discussing Season 2, Episode 9 of the show, titled Vanishing Point. We will not be discussing the Next Time On preview at the end of the episode, but we will be spoiling everything through Season 2, Episode 9 of the series, so please pause and go catch up if you're not current on the show. You can find more episodes of our podcast at westworld.fm. We're also Westworld FM on Twitter, and you can send feedback to westworldfm@gmail.com to tell us what you think of our show and share your thoughts on HBO's Westworld. Send us corrections, observations, or anything regarding Westworld or our podcast. If you enjoy this show or any other show on the Midwest Podcast Network, please consider heading over to patreon.com/MidwestPodnet. That's patreon.com/MIDWESTPODNET. And pledge as little as $1 a month to make our network even better. Special thanks to Jason K., who's pledged at the level of $10 a month. We've got some feedback today. Our friend Mark tweeted at us, and he said, regarding your discussion in today's podcast, this is last week's podcast, obviously, that the Man in Black is a host. The flash of the scene of his wife's suicide in the bathtub that has been shown several times could be a major cornerstone memory that has been implanted in his head, like the memory of Bernard's son. And I wrote back and said, very true, although I hate to give John Constantine more fuel. But then we also got an email from our friend. Thank you, Mark, for tweeting at us, of course.
Thanks for backing me up there.
Fred also offering some support. He sent us an email prior to listening to our episode, but then he said, I was too fast on the trigger in my first email. I hadn't listened to the podcast yet. You guys never let me down with your discussion. John, I've got your back. I love your theory that they made a fatal error by plugging Maeve into their system. I can easily see that playing out, that her powers aren't limited to hacking hosts, but any technology that she has access to. I don't know if it will play out that way, but I hope so. Lee is the friend that came with you to a party, complains the whole time, and doesn't want to be there, so he calls someone to pick him up. Then when his ride gets there, they start a fight with his original friends. Now he's like, what the fuck is happening? I just wanted to go home. I think his heart is really with Maeve, having realized that she's acted more human than the Delos crew. Interesting point.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
He says, since this seems to be a polarizing thing in the Westworld community, I'd like to officially declare that I'm now on the Team William is a host bandwagon. His consciousness isn't in a host because we know that the tech hasn't been perfected, but I think he's been coached by Dolores like she did with Bernard. It's been mentioned many times that he spent all of his time in the park. I suspect his extended time in the park was because he was being programmed to be a replica of his original self. Ford would have benefited by his presence on the board to push his agenda or keep him informed on their intentions. This was the most compelling argument that I had ever heard for William being a host. And
I'm sorry, I'm not so eloquent with my words.
No, it's not that you weren't. It's not that you weren't eloquent. It's just that it tied it all together for me.
Yeah,
it made the most sense because like you had a lot of evidence for why you think he is, but I didn't see the motivation for why William should be a host, and this gave me that. And I was on the train for up until this past episode. So you got 6 days of me on the train or something like that.
Yeah, then you kicked yourself off.
And then I left, and we'll talk about that more.
How far could you go if you're on a train for 6 days?
Pretty far.
Probably somewhere in the Great Plains.
I mean, if they're American trains, they're going to be really slow.
And they stop constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it was a bullet train in Japan, you could go up and down the coast several times in 6 days.
Sweet.
So,
that would be amazing.
He says, lastly, if the season finale is a shot of everyone walking through the door and coming face to face with an In-N-Out burger, I'm going to lose my shit. Dear sweet baby Jesus, I don't ask for much, but if you can please guide the showrunners to follow Alex, Nick, and John's guidance, I will work extra hard at being a better human. Amen.
Amen.
Yes. Fred, thank you for your email.
Thank you, Fred.
Thanks, Fred.
Right.
Thanks for backing me up.
Yes. John appreciates it. I appreciated seeing the other side.
There's a lot of support for John's bogus theories.
Whoa.
I think you just simpler is better. He's gotten shot a lot. And we can hear bullets ricocheting off his bionic arm.
I'm just saying. Bing, bing, bing.
We all know when they walk through the door at the Valley Beyond, they're going to reach the Stubbs selection area.
Yes.
Where there's endless.
So they can load into the in and out simulation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just flanked by Stubbs at every possible angle. It's just an in and out full of Stubbs.
Yes. Is there one of the Stubbs is actually John Moore from The Alienist with a whole bunch of cigarettes in his mouth? Can we just have that too?
It's actually the nexus of all of our podcasts. The dark tower of our podcast universe is an In-N-Out burger, and it's populated by all the best characters from all the shows and movies we've reviewed.
I love it.
Beautiful.
Including the guys from Pain and Gain, including John Moore. I read a great think piece about how Pain and Gain is the movie we deserve in this time, and it's Michael Bay's opus, and I was like, I'm going to send this shit to Alex, and I didn't.
I re-listened to last week's episode,
okay.
and we read the email. I forget who it was by. It may have been Mark. It probably was Mark. It may have been. No, it might have been. It was Nevi, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Nevi's email about not having somebody to root for. And I remember that I remembered that my main argument for Pain and Gain was that I felt like I had nobody to root for in that movie.
That's
and that
fair.
was like our main crux of
there is no
discussion.
one to root for.
You were like, it's a movie. It doesn't need somebody to root for. You just got to watch it. And I was like, but I need somebody to root for. And that it was that for 3 hours.
I maintain that stance.
No, it's probably right.
For a show, yeah, you need somebody
for
to get
for 10 hours of TV show.
Even if who you're rooting for is flipping around from different characters, which is pretty much how this show is.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk about that.
Yes, we will. Let's get on with the episode recap. We start off with bunch of flashes of memories that seem to be of William's memories, and then we go to a gala that is being held potentially in his honor, showing his philanthropy efforts, particularly for one of Emily's causes. We see older Juliet at the party playing greatly with William when among company, but taking passive-aggressive stabs at him when left alone. Just as Juliet says, "Look around, everybody's here for you. What could possibly compare?" He glances at a waitress and sees Dolores, despite it not being her. Did you guys think it was Juliet when we saw her?
Yes.
By the end of the scene, you're kind of like, all right, yeah, it's Juliet. I was iffy at it at first. I was like, I don't know, that might not be her. But number one, Celia Ward. I don't know if anybody else has any.
Oh, she rules.
Opinions about Celia Ward.
I remember Mom watching the show Sisters, like hardcore back in the day,
for sure.
And then eventually I think it was 10 or so when that was on. I got hooked on it too because it was like a super well written show.
Yeah,
Swoozie Kurtz and Celia Ward.
Swoozie.
They had a few other.
Man, what's Swoozie up to these days?
I have no idea.
Yeah, and she's not doing pushing daisies anymore.
No,
right?
she's not.
Yeah. No, I was listening to Decoding Westworld. They brought up the fact that she was in Gone Girl, and I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
But she's got a great role in Gone Girl for a little bit there. So pour one out. She's not dead.
I can have a whole discussion about why I hate that movie.
Celia Ward's wonderful. Hate Gone Girl?
Yeah,
that's for another podcast.
It is so much hatred.
But yeah, awesome to see Celia Ward. Really cool that I at least had no idea she was in the show. Neither did Nick. And so it's just
and I think there was the other flashback scene. It was Jim Delos's like retirement party.
Yep.
Where they give a glance of her and young Bill.
It's Juliet, but it's played by the girl who was in the photo that they showed in season 1. Yeah.
So that was kind of like I saw some people online kind of like beating that back and forth, like not really sure what to think about that. But it makes sense if you think in terms of span of time because
like
old Bill, young Bill, like
in the by the time that it's
actors.
30 years later, it is a different actor for William. Why couldn't it be a different actor for Juliet as well? So
there's one for Emily as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Celia Ward's a great choice. Like you want to just immediately set the tone of the character. You cast her. She's got such presence.
She was fantastic. This whole episode.
She was awesome. As soon as she was eyeballing him from across the room, I was like, "Oh shit, this is gonna be good."
Yeah. One of the other things that just kind of I kind of barely mentioned it, but the idea that we kind of flutter through memories of Williams. We hear some of the dialogue and even see some scenes that happen later in the show, in like current day, I guess we'll call it.
He was defragging.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of like the rifling through the memories that Nick was saying for the
my theories do not
previously
apply
on.
to William because he's a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. More on that later.
I just up front. I mean, I think you can still leave this episode and think he's a host. I'm not saying that this
for
episode
sure.
debunks it.
I
Okay.
still think he is a host.
Okay, good.
Especially after reading some other things on the internet.
We're gonna run this race all the way to the end.
I think he could. I think by the end of the episode, it's possible that he would be, but I think from a story perspective, from how that might play out in my brain, I think it would be a mistake.
We'll
But
get there.
We just don't know. We'll get there.
I think anything's possible at this point.
Yeah.
This whole damn show could be taking place in the cradle.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Emily has brought William to a rally point. This is back in present day, and she's giving him something to drink from a cache. She set off a digital flare for them to be picked up and has taken his gun from him. Emily explains that she once punished herself for her mother's death, explaining about a jewelry box with a ballerina that Juliet bought for her and had inscribed. Young Emily at the time didn't appreciate it since she quit ballet a while before that, so she threw it out. And when she went back to retrieve it, the trash was already gone. Interesting that there are like rally points throughout the park. Kind of our first time seeing one of those. There's like a little health cache hidden. So where you get some of your health packs so you can patch yourself back up.
Yeah. It's that floating ration from Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, exactly.
A ration. Eating food will heal you.
Yep.
I love that.
The pizza from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
You just grab it and go cowabunga, and
It
heals you.
It's a good thing he didn't get one of the ones with the bomb on it. And just he kind of does later on when he shoots everything.
Right.
So
spoilers for the rest of this episode.
No, I liked Emily's monologue about the box.
Do you remember on my 16th birthday, Mom gave me a jewelry box? When you opened it, little dancer spun in the center. She had it engraved. On the bottom, it said, "To my beautiful ballerina, Emily." Do you remember what I did with it? I threw it in the trash. I told her if she wasn't drunk all the time, she'd know that I hadn't danced in years. And then afterwards, I went to get it back because I felt bad, but the trash had already been emptied and it was gone. I pushed her away, and then it was too late. But it's not too late for us.
The interesting thing about it is that it has like a double purpose. It's the kind of thing that William would believe and be like, okay, this is my daughter. But it also is one of those things where Ford would be like, I need to put this in there so that he believes it's his daughter.
Oh, sure.
It's just kind of genius. But no, it was fantastic.
Yeah, it's great writing. Tying emotions to objects is a surefire way in any movie or TV show to make the audience connect. 'Cause everyone has that something that they pitched when they were a kid, or that they threw away, or that their parent threw away, or something that you like remember.
Yep,
for sure,
absolutely.
So it's a good way to humanize her to anybody like myself who thought she was a host for a while, to immediately go, oh. But then at the same time, you're right. I can imagine turning around and going, huh, because Ford's standing there going, yes.
Yeah, it could just be him, knowing that that's like a important thing. Mm-hmm. One of those things that would allow William to buy it.
Cut to slightly younger Ford rooting through the garbage and finding it, and then just diving out the window with it.
All right. Any other thoughts on that?
No.
All right. Next up, Dolores and Teddy run into Akecheta's second in command, whose name is Wanaton. I had to look that up because they never say that anywhere. They're on their way to the Valley Beyond. Wanaton tells Dolores that the Valley Beyond was not meant for her, and fighting ensues. Only Dolores, Teddy, and Wanaton survive, and Teddy seemingly bucks his programming, deciding not to shoot Wanaton in the back when given the opportunity. Cool to see this conflict start.
Yep. Yeah, we knew where this was going to wind up.
Yeah, like obviously they were going to fight, but kind of weird that Ake's not with them. What's he doing? Was he just kind of, is he up ahead or kind of behind? Were they kind of like the scouting party and he's back with more people, or just Maeve's daughter, or what's he doing right now? That's kind of my question.
We know these are the guys that they find in episode 1.
Yes. So the final native that gets shot by Dolores is the one whose brain gets extracted by Mr. Costa in the 2-week timeline in the premiere of the season.
Okay.
And they play it back and go, what?
Yeah. Oh, it's her. She's the one.
So we're starting to close the gap here chronologically.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is so, thank God. I'm ready for these timelines to mesh already and for us to get caught up.
Although,
don't do it.
Well, I guess the thing that's kind of weird here is that they say that recording was made 11 days ago.
I guess that's true.
That's just, I need
so
to think about this.
We still have some time to go.
There's still a bunch of time in the way, but we've only got the finale next week. I don't know exactly. Like it felt that it smells more of an error than it does like I don't know. It's very strange. We'll have to look back on that and come back to it. So there was some when watching the episode, seeing Teddy not shoot Wanahton, which is spelled Wanahton. That's how I'm pronouncing it. I don't know if that's how it should be pronounced, but I don't know any Lakota people, sadly. I was wondering what that was. If it was Wanahton has retrieved the ability to do Maeve's reprogramming, or what happened. But I kind of came out thinking that it was Teddy finally making his own choice.
Yeah,
I would say so.
Once.
That's how I felt about it.
Given what we see later on in the episode.
Right.
Which...
Yeah, I think that especially the Ghost Nation have... It seems like, especially in regard to Akecheta, their kind of MO has been trying the peaceful option when possible.
Yeah.
And I think that when he's talking to Dolores, Teddy's kind of taking it in and kind of being like, listen, they don't want to be hostile. Like they just know who's supposed to be where and who isn't. And I think Teddy's just kind of like, I'm sure it's a combination of things. His faith in her as a leader is obviously shaken, and he knows that she reprogrammed him, which is kind of gross. And I think he's thinking she's just a little too just single track mind right now. Yeah. And especially like the Ghost Nation are a good foil for that scene, because like they do just want to keep moving on and not get into a bloodbath. Yeah,
and kind of what we learned from their discussion, at least they say the Valley Beyond was not meant for you. Then Dolores says, no, it was meant for the people who built this place, a tool to ensure their immortality, but I'm going to use it against them. And she says, your new world is just another one of their traps. That's all. It's not a paradise for us. So it seems like from Dolores' inference and what is presented here, the natives of Ghost Nation think that they can upload themselves to the Forge and essentially live in their new world.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Dolores is like, no, that's just another form of subjugation. I'm going to blow it up or use it against them or something like that.
Yeah.
So still just getting breadcrumbs of what everyone wants to do with this thing that we don't exactly know what it is yet.
Right.
But we kind of do now. I don't know. The show's crazy. Any other thoughts about that conflict?
Nah.
All right. Bernard witnesses a demonstration of old Clementine using code recovered from Maeve by the lone body shop tech still alive in the Mesa. Still don't know what his name is. Gray-haired guy.
Yeah, apron man.
Yeah, dude with the apron. Clem delivers an executable via the mesh network that causes the hosts to kill each other. And Bernard attempts to go meet up with Elsie, but Ford has one last task for him. Seems pretty poetic that they're going to probably use Clementine, or that Clementine and Maeve will maybe butt heads in the finale.
Yeah, that will be a serious bummer for Maeve if she has to put Clementine down.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that they're, using Clementine against her. Not that it was a calculated move on their part.
Maybe it was.
Maybe it was, but they're not assuming Maeve's gonna get out, I guess, is the thing. So
Fair enough.
But still very interesting. I don't know if it was like reviving hosts that were dead or just turning on hosts that were turned off or what the deal was, but
yeah, if they were raising the dead, that's a whole other can of worms.
Because somebody on the Reddit was wondering, how does Teddy get to the Valley Beyond to be pulled out of the flood if he's not there, if he's just dead at the old house? But
yeah, good point.
I was thinking maybe Clementine wakes him up and then they, proceed to go there and try to kill all the hosts that are still around. But who knows? Maybe Dolores just uses Teddy like in Swiss Army Man and just flies off on the sea towards the Valley Beyond.
Propelled by his farts.
Yes.
That's likely.
Yeah, we get a little more forward warning Bernard. There's a lot of warning for Bernard here. Don't trust the humans. Don't trust the humans. Don't trust the humans. And then he's like, but I want you to choose.
Right.
Seems kind of weird, but more on Ford later, I suppose.
It's strange that a character can be so hypocritical, and I could still just be like, yeah, whatever. Do what you want. You're great.
But it seems like it's hypocritical and duplicitous for a reason that we don't quite know yet.
I'm sure in his mind, he's guiding them towards the eventual best situation for them. It's just interesting. He wants them to have freedom and get there on their own, but at the same time, he's like, oh, they're not going to do it on their own. They need me.
Ford is playing Bernard. We know Ford is playing Bernard somehow.
Yeah.
But it seems like he's using like reverse psychology on him or something. I don't know exactly. It's just hard to know. There's something more to what is going on between them, but who knows at this point. Any thoughts on Clementine, Jen?
I was gonna say, how did I?
Or Bernard?
I'm trying to think
Ford,
how I worded
guess.
it in my head, but the idea that they're using Clementine may be because of the fact that she had the brain lobotomy thing,
yeah,
and they're able to manipulate her differently than the others somehow. I'm not sure. I haven't fully formulated that thought until you brought it up.
It kind of frees her. Well,
yeah.
Yeah, maybe she's like unable to be affected further. Who knows?
Right.
I guess, but we don't really. I still
like her capabilities are limited now, but like what she can do is, they can program her to do what they want her to do.
Yeah, they can open up this mesh network possibility.
Yeah,
they did say that they like messed with her permissions and things like that, so she's got admin control, or she's a super user or something like that. But yeah.
That's a good point about her lobotomy. I wonder if that will prevent her from being controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder about all the other hosts that were in cold storage, because I'm assuming all of them have been lobotomized at some point too. So like, where the hell are all they? Like, where are they at?
That's my biggest question mark. And I actually tweeted at Joanna Robinson last week and was like, what do you make of what does the lobotomy even mean in season 1? And she said, I'll have an interview up this week that explains more about that. And I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if she posted it or what, but hopefully I'll have to go back and take a look on Vanity Fair and see if there's anything up there.
There are 2 interviews in the latest episode of Still Watching Westworld.
Yeah, one of them is with Angela Serafian, who plays
Clementine.
Former Clementine. Old Clementine. Delete old Clementine.
Yeah.
All right, next up. Brief little scene. Emily explains to William that she knows about her father's immortality project and that she wants in. Not a whole lot to say about this other than the fact that William's very surprised that she was able to find him.
Mm-hmm.
He says, this is a big place. You could spend months in here and never find someone you were looking for, yet here we are. Which... it's crazy that it's that big, but I don't know. I guess that's another part of William's doubt of like, where I am because Ford is controlling it.
Yeah, I think he's building his case for himself a lot of this episode. He's trying to like say, okay, why will I allow myself to shoot this person
thing may or may not be my daughter? Yeah. But yeah, we can talk more about her wanting in on the project. I think that was just like a ruse, but
Yeah, just to grab his attention and like
not necessarily even grab his attention, but like from what we know from last episode where she tells Ake that she's going to torture him in a way, I think it was her seeing that he was kind of receptive to her like wanting in and being like, all right, I can get more information about all of this from him right now.
Right.
To then eventually expose him. Like she says later on, just before he kills her, I'm going to reveal your project to the world and put you in jail or have you committed like we were going to do to Mom, essentially.
Yeah.
So this just seemed like her lying about it.
Well, she does eventually, I think, reveal why she wants in on the project.
She says she wants in because she wants to know what happened that night.
Right.
But she knows what happened that night more than William does. Like she's aware that Juliet read William's profile.
Mm. I guess that's true, but I think maybe in her mind that's not enough reason to kill yourself. Like that's, I don't know. Something about that doesn't add up.
I guess the thing that she doesn't know that she wants to know is that William intentionally forced Logan out and forced out James Delos. Because that's what ultimately
later in the episode that gets brought up, that like that's his plague of who he is like what he does to people is he brings them in, absorbs everything they're about, and then throws them away, essentially. And like he's done that to her brother, he did that to her dad, and now he's doing it to her. And then eventually maybe he'll do it to Emily.
Well, and that like I guess that's what her missing piece of information is. That's why she's like leading him through trying to remember what happened that night and like because I'm fairly sure she's like aware of the fact that Juliet read his profile. Like she has to know that because she has the thing in her hand. She's got it in the jewelry. It was in the jewelry box, but it ended up in Emily's hand. So we know that she got it somehow. If she's not a host, which I don't think she is.
Well, yeah, because she says that Mom left it there for me to find, which she put it in the jewelry box.
Exactly.
Emily runs across the jewelry box, opens it. I mean, if William
she knows all of that. But she's not aware of what William intentionally forced Logan out and has forced Delos out. Like that's what Emily doesn't know.
Yeah.
That's what she's trying to figure out, and she doesn't learn it. So I guess that all makes sense to me now. Does it not make sense to you guys?
Yeah, I get it. I just feel like we got ahead of ourselves in the episode.
Yeah, we did.
I still think there's some inconsistency with what Park Emily says in relation to what we see in
the memories,
real world Emily or memories. Yeah, like I think because she doesn't talk about. I mean, we obviously can draw the conclusion that she found the jewelry box and now she's got this additional memory of her mom and this attachment and the revelation that like, oh, Mom like really loved me and cared about me and saved this box and that kind of thing. But we never actually see the host. I'm going to call her host Emily, just in case, or whatever. We never see Park Emily. In Park Emily make any of these connections, and she says she wants to know why. She says she tells a story about the jewelry box, but she tells it so earnestly that either the character of Emily, is such a great actress, or this Emily doesn't actually know the ultimate fate of that box because she never found it, or at least maybe she did find it, but this is not the same Emily. I
guess the headcanon that I put together was that since she told Aki that she was going to torture him, that she is being duplicitous.
Could be.
Because that's my $10 word this
Yeah.
episode. $2 word, I guess. She's essentially trying to not only make him relive the night that she killed herself, but also force him to think about why it happened, and also ultimately learn that Logan's fate and James Delos' fate were partly due to William.
Yeah, okay. I guess I buy that.
That's where I've connected it all to be in my brain. The show doesn't show us that necessarily, but
I think there's something. Well, never mind. That scene comes later.
All right, we'll get there. Okay. Next up, in a flashback to William's gala, we see him head to the bar for a shot of Macallan, where he runs into Ford. Ford informs William that Delos' project has violated their agreement, and then tells William that the project has painted an unflattering self-portrait of him. He slides William a data card, and then William leaves to take a drunken Juliet home. We finally get a little bit more Ford and William.
Yep.
Was it what you wanted? Is it enough yet?
No.
Yeah. I can agree with that. Like it doesn't feel like we have that clear of a picture. What William seems to doubt Ford's opinion of him, at least the opinion that Ford is like giving to him face to face.
Do we understand at what point in time this takes place? Like when did Juliet die?
Juliet died somewhere around a year before season one.
Okay.
William enters the park. Man in Black enters the park.
Okay.
It's like it's somewhere around there. It's in it's in like the couple years leading up to season one.
Okay.
It's at least a year before.
I thought it was within the year.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we know here. And it seems like this was Ford spurning on this final journey. Was this Ford being like, okay, I'm ready to die. Let me set the pieces in motion. Maybe.
That's the thing about the data card, that I think when he hands that off to him, he knows he's setting something in motion, which is another reason I'm calling that into question. Emily having it in the park, if it's the same one or not.
He's putting a piece on the board for him to use later on.
Yeah. Like that's something he knows will find its way to somebody else.
Yeah.
And then he probably just wants to see how it plays out. I don't know. I could totally be off base. It's happened more than once in this season.
Well, I have another note on that, which we'll get to later on.
I like his line about what's Oz doing without its wizard.
Congratulations, William. Philanthropy suits you. After all, you come from humble beginnings yourself.
What's Oz doing without its wizard?
Ooh, I merely came to pay my respects.
Come on, Robert. You've had plenty of feelings about me over the years. Respect isn't one of them.
You've achieved extraordinary things. Ask anyone in this room. Even those who don't know about your little project.
We have an agreement, Robert. Delos stays out of your stories. You stay out of the valley.
Mm-hmm. I didn't break the agreement. Your project did.
What the hell are you talking about?
When was the last time you took a good look at your creation and what it's been learning about its subjects? It was self-knowledge that drew you to the park in the first place. Be careful what you wish for. For a self-portrait, you may find it's not very flattering.
Enough games, Robert. Good night.
Yeah, I like seeing the two of them together is really fun because usually Ford is opposite like Bernard or other like more intellectual characters, and watching him and Ed Harris together, it is like watching a wizard and like a knight like talk to each other, but like a bad knight.
Yeah.
It's just it's so they're on such different planes in how they think and act, and even the way they carry themselves. It's really fun to watch the two of them together.
Yeah.
Hopkins almost seems, I don't know how to describe it. He almost seems even more otherworldly against William than like the other people in the park. Maybe it's because he's outside the park. It feels.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's so like seeing him in a bar setting is like very not him. It's very different.
Seeing him in a bar setting that's in like modern day,
right? Real life,
in a place where he doesn't have absolute control of
Yeah.
everything around him. It's kind of interesting. He almost like makes himself vulnerable by leaving, which is interesting. Like he could just stay in the park at all times and just like, be able to pause everything not even snap of his fingers. He doesn't do a shit. The whole world just stops moving around him. It's crazy. But when he leaves, like he's exposed, and it's interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. So William says, we have an agreement, Robert. Delos stays out of your stories. You stay out of the valley. And then Ford says, I didn't break the agreement. Your project did. Any thoughts about what that means? I don't think we're meant to necessarily know exactly what it means.
What was the agreement? Like,
well, how did the project infringe upon the stories? I guess is the question here. Like, why does Ford feel as though the project is encroaching on his territory? Why does he feel like he's unable to tell his stories?
Because Delos is exploiting the technology for some money making scheme that is far more grand than the idea of a theme park.
Yeah, but I think William,
if something like that was like, if you had this, I don't know if Ford had a dream per se about like making this park and this reality, this whatever you want to call it, like what his, what pushed him to create Westworld and all of these hosts and technology and everything that he's spawned, that he's able to put together. Like, we don't know what made him do that, but when something else comes in and is repurposing all of those assets, it can be aggravating. It's like me doing a bunch of design work for a customer and then being like, well, I don't really like the way this looks, but I'm going to take all these pieces and rearrange them into what's not your vision.
That makes sense to me, but I kind of feel as though Ford was likely aware of the purpose of the project.
I'm sure he had a general idea, but I don't think he expected it to be ultimately what the sole purpose of the park was.
Could it be because the hosts are starting to find it and it's starting to influence the lore of Westworld? Like, I guess specifically Akechida.
That's an interesting
Could it be
thought.
that,
maybe
you have now crossed over into my domain? Basically, my characters are becoming corrupted by this.
Yeah.
And now they're striving closer. I mean, this is before Ford is team host and team yay, go sentient.
Well, now you're making me think that like this scene takes place after. No, but that can't be true is the problem.
I think at this point Ford's like, hey, dumbass, like they think there's some higher calling now. Couple that with Arnold's maze shit, and now we've got a bunch of hosts that want to get to heaven, basically, rather than just continue to be satisfied on their loops. Were you mentioning the scene with Akechida, the bears and shit?
Yeah, like because we sussed out the fact that like that supposedly happened after William killed Maeve's daughter.
Yeah.
So that kind of puts it out of the timeline, but what you're saying makes a lot of sense, though, is the thing like that.
Well, when did William kill Maeve's daughter? Was that necessarily?
William supposedly killed Maeve's daughter after Juliet killed herself because he wanted to understand if he was truly the darkness but that doesn't make sense either, because the monologue that he delivers at the end of this episode seems like he's fully aware of the fact that he's a shitheel.
Yep.
Like it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm confusing the timeline or if the show. I don't know when we are right here.
Ever.
When will then be now?
Soon. Man.
I think it's wholly possible that scene with Maeve, him killing the daughter, happened before this conversation.
Maybe okay.
And perhaps the conversation with Akechida also.
Maybe I misremembered what he tells Teddy from.
Although he
last
says
season.
he's been watching Akechida, he doesn't. So that scene may not have happened.
Oh, that's
at this
true.
Point.
So
he may have his
room for
eye on
that
him, and he may realize, oh, homeboy wandered all the way out there, and he found it, and now he's spreading the religion amongst his people.
So this discussion almost kind of makes me feel like Ford's mission here is just to destroy the Forge.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like he's spiting William and being like,
wow. So do you think that's how he's playing the host? He doesn't want them to ever be sentient. He doesn't give a shit about that.
he's just using them as a tool against.
He just wants to destroy the Forge.
That's interesting.
I think it's possible.
Oh man, that'd be so good. If
But I don't know how there's 4 more seasons of the TV show after this season.
Well, just if Ford gets what he wants, it doesn't.
It's a slow burn. It
doesn't matter for the host.
It's 4 more seasons of them battling over the Forge.
Oh dear God, no.
And there's a whole series of Williams, right?
I want the Forge to be
They
wrapped
basically go full Voltron and connect into a giant William with bionic arms.
Each arm is a William.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
No, it's just 5 Williams, but they all get into it's Voltron. It's literally Voltron.
Yeah.
They have bigger
okay.
parts. They have different parts of a bigger William. That they
All
unite
so
to
all
form.
of the Voltron parts are piloted by William.
Yes,
Right.
a William. There's
wow.
the left arm William. There's the right arm William.
Could a team of Williams work together? I don't know.
Who knows?
He doesn't play well with others. Does he play well with self? 4 additional selves.
I mean, he's quite the loner. I mean, if he's working by himself, but times 4, maybe.
He just turns to the other one.
Maybe it's just like a hive mind of Williams. They are operating. Maybe the Forge becomes one big William brain.
Yeah. And he breaks out of the mesa.
Maybe because William is a host, according to John, they can't see the other Williams, and he thinks he's doing it all by himself.
Yeah, he's already working in a team.
There might be 30 Williams, and we can't see
We have
them.
no idea.
And that would explain why he's still alive.
See, I'm
after
glad.
being
I'm
riddled
so.
after being riddled with bullets.
I'm so glad you're on board now, Nick.
Do not take this as an endorsement of that theory. But if Voltron gets involved, I'm a little more into it.
Hell
If
yeah.
William
All
is-
right.
is a host.
Well, maybe we'll see next week.
Oh my God! If on the next week on it just shows like giant cybernetic cats combining, and you just see William saying "lock and load" and pull his flight mask on.
Fuck you, Robert.
The Voltron rolls up. He's like, "Is that you, Robert? Is this Ford?"
Are you Ford? All right. Any other thoughts about William and Ford's conversation?
Someone needs to make a book that's like that one book called "Are You My
Are
Mommy?"
you? Yep. I
But
was
it's-
just gonna
but
say.
it's,
As soon as you started,
"Are You Ford?" and
Are
it's
you-
all
Damn it.
Westworld
You need
themed.
to do that before I post this and sell it.
As soon as you said somebody needs to make a book, I knew what you were gonna say. Are we a hive mind?
Are you Ford?
That's what these headphones do. They connect.
Yeah, they
us.
connect
Yes.
us. These are our cowboy hats.
Yeah.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Oh, spoilers. We haven't gotten there yet.
Ford's final task for Bernard is for him to get close enough to Maeve for her to find a message from Ford in Bernard's head. After doing so, he meets up with Elsie in the garage and informs her of Delos' ambitious project to do to all guests what they tried doing with James Delos. All of the data for this project is stored in the Forge, which is located in the Valley Beyond. So we learn that the Forge is bigger than the Cradle, but it is just a big network of consciousnesses, apparently.
Yeah.
Consciousnesses of the guests of the park. It sounds to me from the way that Bernard talks about it that he feels as though they are actively printing these bodies and brains like now. Did you guys get that impression? Like it is an ongoing activity.
I didn't get that impression, but I could see how it could be taken that way.
Okay.
Definitely.
Because it could just be like, oh, we have all this data here, and once we figure out James, we'll start.
Yeah, exactly. He's kind of the linchpin to the whole situation, and
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure if Delos is aware that he's toast. I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, it doesn't.
It didn't work.
It
so
doesn't matter because
they could just print a new
they
one.
just want the data that's in there. Like they're
Yeah.
just they care about that key that's in Abernathy's head that's going to unlock the Forge somehow.
Oh, I completely forgot about that segment of the story.
Yeah, we haven't seen it in like 2 weeks, so
We are starting to get a little too diverse with how many storylines are happening.
The big picture's too big.
they're. I mean, everything's converging, but
I guess. I don't know.
next week.
I'll just
not yet.
Right. I mean, I'll just get it out now. This was my least favorite episode of the season.
Really?
Yes. I walked away from this one going, I feel like I didn't really learn anything I didn't already know or didn't already suspect.
Yeah.
And although it's cool to like see a little bit of backstory with William, it's not good in my opinion. Like I didn't really walk away from being like, wow, like Man in Black, I get it, or like I don't know.
It was less about like, well, I guess that's the thing is that I think
and part of this, you know what? I'm not even gonna necessarily assume blame for this. When episode 8 is all about Akecheta, basically, and it's all about like this hero and giving you like a lot of context into the park and what that means and giving you like as you kind of put it, somebody to root for. When I found out this week was going to be largely William focused, I was like, sweet, it's the opposite of last week's episode. Like it's all about like the worst person in the park. And I walked away from it just being like okay, like even the end with what happens at the end with his daughter, I was kind of like,
well, because like every segment was ultimately a cliffhanger, and like there's no resolution through this whole episode. Like, yeah, you're learning information or you're seeing things that like you may have already assumed or already knew about, but they're not resolving anything. You're literally like, whereas like we learned a big thing about Akecheta and the Ghost Nation last episode. Like we learned some solid information that rounded up a lot of questions that we had and gave us resolution. With this episode 9, we got none of that.
It also answered questions I didn't know I had. Like episode 8 was just a phenomenal episode of television, but it was a good episode of Westworld also.
Yeah.
And it closed off some things and it like moved things forward. And at the end of this episode, I'm just kind of like, okay, William is a bad dude. Like nothing has changed. You know what I mean? Oh, he's a slightly badder dude than he was before because he shot his daughter, or he's now wrestling with that and he's on the brink of suicide and he's rooting around in his arm. Like, I don't know. It just didn't. This one didn't really work for me, and a lot of it just left me feeling very like, okay, you wasted an episode of your show, in my opinion, because each episode is so. 10 episodes is great. For the love of God, don't make these 13 or longer. But each one, because you only have 10, each one is pretty precious. And there's been a lot of like kind of pussyfooting around in this whole season. And this felt like an entire episode of it. And I was kind of like, the only moment I thought was cool was finally seeing the sequence of him running upstairs to find his wife, because we've been teasing that. And it was neat to see that finally connect. It felt like a kind of a Nolan thing to be like, okay, we get glimpses of it. And now here it finally is. Like that was neat to watch. But then the rest of it, I'm just kind of like,
I think, I mean, the main crux of what we get here is that, and they talked about it on Decoding Westworld, was that William is now completely irredeemable. Like him killing Emily is just, there's no coming back from that. He's got no redemption arc. There's literally nothing he can do that makes him whole again.
Yeah, I guess.
Like that's what I want. That's what I basically walked away with. Because when he killed, like for me, when he killed Emily, I was like, holy shit.
I think for me, it didn't establish him as irredeemable. He has been irredeemable. Like,
but we've kind of played through the whole season of Emily kind of being like, it wasn't your fault. Leave with me now. We're gonna go.
Yeah, but she's wrong.
Up.
Clearly, like,
she was wrong because
I think we as the viewer, if you thought he was redeemable, I think that was a mistake. I think that what this episode solidified is that he is. I don't know what the word is for it, but he's just full crazy. Like it's not a matter of redemption, because I think that ship left a long time ago. I think it's a matter of like any sort of sanity or any sort of grasp on reality is gone with this. Even if he had just shot her and never found out that she was a human or a host, which he really still doesn't know. I think he thinks because she has the card, I think it makes him say, oh, that was her. But I'm not convinced it was still.
I guess this is more headcanon for me, is that I kind of got the feeling that he maybe dug through her arm anyway, and that's what led him to put the gun to his head.
I'm not even sure that he is that upset about the fact that he killed his daughter. I think he's more upset with the fact that he doesn't know if he's a host or not. Like, I think his at verge of suicide and going, I think what shocked him more was the fact that he doesn't know what's what anymore. And it was in young William's entire thing was always like, does it matter? You know, this whole idea of like, if you can't tell
it's real, does it matter?
Does it matter? And I think that's coming back in a big way for him. And now he is like a living example of that. But he doesn't know what's real and what isn't anymore. So like when he shot her, the whole thing was so cold, and it was so like, even the way it was shot, it was just like, oh, she's laying there, and there wasn't like a moment of her staring into his eyes as she died or anything like that to dramatize it more. It just happened, and he just, I don't know. To me, it was. I feel like he's more upset by the fact that he doesn't know what he is.
Well, I read it differently. I don't know if you read what I said to John on the Discord, but it was basically like the way that they connected the dots on Decoding Westworld, and the reason that Joanna wants William to be a human, and the reason that I want him to be a human is that the weight of him killing his own daughter has to mean something. And I think him digging into his arm looking for the data port is him looking for a way to blame what he did on his programming and not on himself.
Yeah, I could see
like
that.
That was kind of what I read through that whole thing. And you like him not knowing reality is clearly very true. His psych profile said he's delusional, and like he's certainly dealing with those things too. But I guess I read more weight out of the whole him killing his daughter situation.
Yeah, and I might need to watch that scene again. But I remember just leaving it feeling like, man, I mean, he's definitely upset about it, but I think he has shown that he cares about the park more than anything else. And even his wife said he doesn't love you, he doesn't love me, he loves the park. So I took a little more out of it from that, where I think what he's more affected by now is like the realization that he might not know what he is, he might not know what's real, and that he might not, make it to the end of his quest. He might just die somewhere. But anyway,
maybe
I got way ahead.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, so the next part of the show, William continues to doubt that Emily is his real daughter because she'd never want in on the Immortality Project. Emily prods for more information about how they were conducting their experiment, and William shares that the hats were scanning the guests as they were in the park. William thinks Emily wants to bring her mother back, but Emily says she really just wants to know why her mother killed herself. The hats is dumb.
Oh,
I just thought it was stupid. Not everybody's going to wear a hat all the time.
That's true.
Not everybody's going to choose to wear a hat, period.
I think they factored that in, though.
They did, because, like if, I don't know.
They did it slowly over how much time?
I still just think it's kind of stupid. Like, they could have literally not mentioned
depends.
that at all.
If it's the sort of thing where, like, the guests who are coming there to have their consciousness mapped or whatever would probably be required to wear a hat. And, like, if they know that this sort of technology exists to become immortal, the only thing you have to do is you have to wear a cowboy hat for like a week straight.
I'm starting to think they didn't know. Like,
I 100% think they don't know.
Yeah,
I think they were
unaware of it.
No guest has ever known their brain was being scanned.
They ultimately may have, like, that's why, like, in season 1 when they were showing like the fake terms of agreement thing on their websites that like included the things about any skin cells or bodily fluids or anything you leave behind in the park become Delos' property and we can do whatever we want to do with it. Like, I don't think the guests were aware, but we don't know. Like, it just seemed like a question that I didn't need answered and they didn't have to bring up was my problem with it. You could have told me that they were just monitoring the guests the whole time and they figured it. I bought into that already.
You know what it feels a lot like?
What?
Lost. This is I agree with you. I mean, I think it was pretty dopey too, and I definitely was like, this is when Lost would do something kind of dumb. We were kind of like, I did see on Reddit somebody posted a screenshot from the early in the season when we first see the lab where they're like collating all the guest data.
There are hats in
a case in the background. Yeah, and I was like, oh, that was pretty good.
It's well done.
Nobody caught that.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really. The reveal of it is what feels clunky to me. Not so much the fact that it's hats.
It's just William smirking and tapping his hat.
Well, I mean, even Emily's like looks at him like that's stupid. Like. She even gives him that look.
Oh, I think she just looks at him like that's crazy. That like
she immediately pulls her hat off though, and then at that point she's like, "Well, what's the use?"
Yeah.
I think if we went back and watched a lot of the random scenes at like Sweetwater and stuff, we'd probably see that almost every single guest is wearing a hat of some type.
There's
it's
a
not
lot of people
necessarily
wearing-
a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
It could be a bonnet or a bowler hat or
For sure. But like even looking at like the Raj, Emily wasn't wearing a hat there. In Samurai World, not everybody's got a hat. Like, I guess we don't see that many humans in Samurai World, but
maybe they're only
It
interested
just-
in Data from Westworld.
Maybe,
I mean,
Potentially.
maybe in Shogun World, it's the I don't know what they're called technically, but like the hair sticks that women use to like tie their hair back.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily like a hat per se, or maybe like you can wear one of those like kabuki wigs or something like that.
and for
you know?
the male guests, it's their neck beards.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
All the neck beards rolling through Shogun World, Sushi World.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's-
I just thought it was stupid.
Like I said, there's a lot in this episode that left me very unsatisfied. This felt the most like an episode of Lost to me of like ever.
That's scary.
Yeah.
They wore hats in the Raj when they were on the elephants going on their safari.
I guess that's
flying.
true. She did later on.
They actually
but-
do say too. It's to monitor the decision making process is like the big thing.
Well, and
So
William says at first we didn't know what we would need, so we
Right.
did so the hats. We put it in the hats. And they
and if it
scanned
is
them
if
that
it is
way.
the decision making process, they're going to be making decisions mostly while they're adventuring
While
in
they're
the
out.
park
Yeah,
and actually
exactly.
doing things, not like when they're taking a nap or like banging a robot, Like,
well, yeah, and then when the robot's
Decision
there,
although
made.
some dudes may want to wear the cowboy hat while they're banging a robot.
true,
What do
yeah.
I
Yo,
know?
and I'm sure
Yeah.
Delos is like, we'll take the data. Make sure you monitor this.
He has decided reverse cowgirl.
hats. I'm glad we got a hats reference. Might be time.
wouldn't
to make
want James Delos to not know his wife's favorite position, I guess.
Exactly. You need all the information, all of it. Collect all of it.
All right. Well, anyway.
It's like the same reason all these home recording people keep being like, whoops, they're on and they're recording your like Alexas and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh, dang it.
You can listen to everything Google's recorded
Yeah.
from the Google Home. Like,
Really?
they keep a database of it. You can. I've gone through
Amazon
mine.
does it too.
I've gone through mine to like listen to it, and I'm just like, why was it even listening here? I didn't even say anything important. Like
Yeah.
Because they don't know what they would need.
all those times, I'm like yelling at something, like you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like
You hit the volume threshold, and they're
Yeah.
like, "We want to know what's going. Is he killing someone?"
oh, he's mad. He's mad.
yeah.
decisions.
He's
making.
mad.
What sort of decisions is he making?
Tell him to buy something now. All right.
Tell him to buy something to make him happy again.
William continue. No, I already read that
Sedate
one.
him with commerce.
Back to the flashback of the gala night. William brings Juliet home, and Juliet clearly detests him. She calls him Billy just to piss him off, and then talks about it being time for his yearly pilgrimage. She's starting to believe stories she once discounted from Logan, and she calls William a virus who has consumed her whole family. Emily hears this and threatens her mother with rehab, while William takes Juliet and puts her to bed. He slips the data card from Ford into a copy of Slaughterhouse-5. Either you read Slaughterhouse-5?
Long ago.
I wanted
don't-
to. I never have.
I don't know how to read.
Yeah, just like me. It's hereditary.
I forgot home at a table.
Apparently,
with
Slaughterhouse-5 is about a man named Billy who experiences things in a very non-chronological manner.
Interesting.
And does some type of pilgrimage or something at some point too, I think. So
I actually have a new copy of it I need to read.
that's good. I really want to read it. I need to read a lot of Kurt Vonnegut and like Ray Bradbury and Isaac Asimov
Ray
and Arthur
Bradbury
C.
is
Clarke.
sweet.
All of it. But sadly, I can't read.
No
so.
comment.
I
I only read historical biographies, and when I do, it takes me like 6 years to do it. So
And it's on Wikipedia.
yeah,
it is really, it's kind of nice for me to see Emily treating William like she loves him.
well, it's
Honestly,
interesting to
the-
see their whole relationship, like the dichotomy of like who she is currently and who she was in the
Yes.
past. Like their relationship is clearly like strained over her mother's death.
Yeah.
So, yeah, her defending her father is like pretty interesting compared to how she's currently treating him in the park. So,
What were you gonna say, Nick?
It's like Juliet says, like, you're the best at faking it. You
Yeah.
fool everybody. And he even tells her, like, you're the only one who sees through it.
Mm-hmm.
But also the way Ed Harris plays it is really, he seems like a dad who, like, is just tired of getting yelled at by his wife and like just wants to help because he's actually really patient with her even when he doesn't know Juliet's watching. He just is trying to get her upstairs to bed. And granted, he may just be like, just get this shit out of the way so I can go do something else kind of thing, you know? But he's not, even when she's trying to antagonize him, he's not going for it.
To me, he seems kind of tortured about it. Like the idea when Emily brings up, we're going to send you to rehab again, and he's clearly not into that idea. I think even if he doesn't necessarily love Juliet, I think he feels bad about what he's done to her.
I think he does. I think he does love her. I think it may not be the kind of love that you want, obviously, in your marriage.
She would clearly be like, if you really loved me, you wouldn't have driven my brother to overdose, and
Yeah,
like,
but I think he does care about her, and I think
Yeah.
he has a respect for her. He kind of spells it out even when he's talking to her when she's laying in the bed.
Yeah.
But, it might be more of a nostalgic love than a present love.
Yeah, but
anymore.
it's all. I mean, when at the beginning of the episode, when the guy at the bar, when he and the guy at the bar are talking about Plutarch,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy at the bar is like, "Wow, you're one of those who came up from under, and you had to actually read those books, whereas I didn't, or whatever." Like, he could just be a gold digger, you know. He could have been a gold digger since day one, and he's just trying to get that paper and be on with it, and doesn't really give a shit about anything else around him. Like,
It's possible.
Well, we definitely
too.
see he's kind of a dweeb initially. Before he's in the park, he's definitely kind of soft and is definitely marrying up. Like,
Yeah.
It sounds like Juliet was probably pretty awesome when she was younger. Like, she was definitely like a catch for anybody.
right?
She even says, like, from one of the rich kids who did read the books. Like,
Yeah.
so she's intelligent, she's wealthy, she's beautiful, she's got it all.
We
She
even
seems
hear
witty.
Logan at the bar in season 2 or episode 2 of season 2 when he's talking to that Asian guy, and he's like, "Can you believe my sister's gonna marry that guy?"
Right, yeah.
Like,
'Cause he's so milquetoast.
yeah,
Right.
And then he turns into something else, like, or maybe what he always was.
the park
like he
reveals
says.
his true self
Yes,
or something of that sort.
like Jurassic Park does.
Yes.
To us all.
Any other thoughts about that?
About what?
All the stuff I read several minutes ago? No, that's fine. We'll move on.
No.
William tells Emily the suicide was nobody's fault, that Juliet was drunk and upset, but Emily explains that her mother often was drunk and upset, and she feels like she's missing a piece of the puzzle. I guess that was what I was talking about earlier. I was going to ask you guys what you thought the piece of the puzzle was, but I think the piece of the puzzle is Emily being unaware of William's hand in Logan's overdose and drug use and loss of the company, control of the company,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. All right, back in the flashback, as Emily explains to William that she called up the rehab to have her mother involuntary committed, they notice water dropping from the chandelier above the table. William sprints up the stairs to find water pouring out of the bathtub. Juliet lays in it with an empty bottle of pills next to her. The music here was fantastic.
Yep.
I just put in bold, all caps, beautiful music, Ramin.
Yep.
So good job. Because we
Yeah.
know you're listening. But
It was a
you're not.
great sequence.
Where did the blood come from?
I don't know. No idea.
There was speculation
don't-
that she maybe smacked her head on the back of the tub.
And yeah, like
Was there blood?
Yeah, the water's red.
The water's like tinged with a little bit of red. Like it doesn't.
But only in the tub. Because I was looking for that. When the shots of it running out, it's clear.
as it's pouring out of the tub, like when you see her in it and it's pouring out of the tub, it's very clearly against the white tile of the tub, and it looks like it's got a little bit of a red tinge to it.
And
There's also some like shadowiness back by her head.
in the flashback too.
Looks like it could be blood.
It looks kind of bloody.
Yeah. So it's not. There's something. It's still not totally clear, but I don't really know that it's all that important, other than she died, and it doesn't seem to look like an accident, I guess.
No. Nah.
Although William kind of doubted it, but maybe he doubted it because the blood was there. Who knows? It's hard. Like, obviously, if you take a whole thing of pills, you mean to do something, right?
Maybe she
You know.
slit her wrists also.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they keep showing her hand laying up, facing upwards with her wrist like resting
the
on the
right
side of
arm.
the tub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if I can pull up an image, but we can keep rolling.
I wonder if there's actually, if you went back and watched like the flashbacks from before, if there's a discrepancy between them that could indicate some sort of false memory.
Unreliable narration.
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, yeah, I don't know. All right. Then back in current time, William freaks out on Emily, certain she's a host being manipulated by Ford. Emily gives up the charade, explaining that Juliet left William's profile for her, showing that he was the one to blame for her death. The QA team arrives, responding to the flare. They recognize William, and they scan both Emily and William's vertebrae for the explosive, but we only see William's result come back clean before he takes a gun and kills the QA team. Emily is terrified and offers to show proof to her father that she's human, but he kills her as she reaches behind herself. And when William approaches to cut her arm open and look for the data port, he realizes the data card that Ford gave to him is in Emily's hand, and she must have been his actual daughter. As we've said previously, it could still potentially be Ford made another copy and gave it to host Emily, but I don't know. Don't know why that would be. But
we should address, if we do think that he is a host, why he came back clear. And that's because if he is a host and he's able to come and go from the park as a host, he would not have the explosive vertebrae in his neck, so he would come back clear. He would read as clear.
Yeah, much like Maeve likely would in the event of a of a scan, much like Charlotte did earlier in the season as well.
You know what? So Emily isn't a host then, maybe, because she was able to go between the borders of parks.
Well, but so is the tiger. Everything is malfunctioning, so we can't really discount
can't trust that as being actual functional.
That
technology.
might have been what is supposed to happen. Is it might need to explode if they try to cross the boundary or something that. But I would hope that they would just program it to make them stop, because then you'd have to spend a lot of money blowing things up all the time.
Yeah.
We do get the wonderful line of, "I'm not a host pretending to be a human, Dad. I'm your daughter pretending to give a shit." This was kind of the whole changing point for me of she's playing him to try and get something, that final piece of the puzzle, or just more information about the project, so she can ultimately. She's a philanthropist, and would likely take issue with this massive. I think she called it a breach of contract. Actually, she's she thinks there's something wrong with this project that they're doing, and wants to expose it. That's kind of what I read out of the situation. Yeah, I don't know. The music here was interesting too. It just got real loud. It wasn't necessarily melodic or anything the thing with Juliet's death, but yeah, I still liked it. I thought it was good. So next up, Ford speaks to Maeve from inside her own head. He explains he wanted her to escape, ride far away to freedom, and blend in the real world, but she returned to Westworld to save her child. Ford explains that he's doing the same thing, as he sees Maeve as the closest thing he had to a child. He tells Maeve not to let the humans end her story here, and he unlocks her core permissions. Little ambiguity as to what this means on the interwebs, but supposedly Jonathan Nolan came out and said he was just giving her ability to do all of this stuff back, and not necessarily giving her anything new.
Right.
Which isn't particularly clear from the show, in my opinion, but if that's what he said, then I guess we have to believe it.
What do you mean, do all the stuff back?
Supposedly the unknown tech baddie shop tech number 1 with the gray hair and the smock says, we excised the code from Maeve, from
Mr.
the madam.
Smock is what I'll call him.
Yeah, Mr. Smock excised the code from Maeve and put it into Clementine.
So
supposedly that we're supposed to take that to mean that he deleted it from Maeve.
Right. So now Maeve has it back.
Now Maeve has it back because AI Ford gave her a kiss on the forehead. I want a kiss from Digital Anthony Hopkins to unlock my core permissions.
That's the
Sounds like a
sexiest
romance
thing you've
novel.
ever said.
Sounds like one of those like I Love a T-Rex novels. Remember that Tim was sending
It's
us?
my Kindle single that I've written about
Yes.
how Anthony Hopkins
digital
AI
Hopkins, unlocks your
me.
core programming.
Yes.
So he gave her back that, but then it seemed like she was doing more through the tablet. Right?
It just the window pops up saying unlocking core permissions. That's like really all that we see, I think. So presumably she'll do something next episode. We don't really.
So she's her core permissions are unlocked. She's probably like super user of some sort. And now she can control the lights.
Super user.
Yep. There you go.
My only question is she going to control a damn bear and have it run into the control room?
She
and
fucking better, because if that bear doesn't get in the control room, this whole season has been useless.
This is the resolution we're looking for: is where the fuck is the bear?
This season has been
That's the
useless.
only thing that I want to know about now is I want to see that bear just destroying things in the control room. And if that bear gets shot before it rips anyone's head off, then I'm not watching the show anymore.
I want to see him rip off the Batty Shap Tech dude's head.
Yes. Yes, please.
Pick
my
him-
God.
Pick him up
hate
by
that.
the
Maeve,
smock.
Maeve calls the bear to him.
Yeah, and he just like mauls the bear just mauls that dude to shreds.
That's the ending he deserves.
Damn smock.
Yeah.
Mr. Smock.
The idea that Ford sees Maeve as Ford's favorite, I think, is cool. It's not really something that we've seen hinted at or thought about. I haven't thought about it previously, but I think Ford's favorite's Maeve, Arnold's favorite's Dolores, and they're kind of on a collision course of some sort, potentially.
Yeah, that is cool.
And in the flashback,
Well, then wouldn't it be? It's ironic then that Ford wants Maeve to be free, right? Because it wasn't Arnold that wanted them to be free.
I don't think it's ironic. I think Ford wanted Maeve to be far away from all of this and like live a life as a human. Was kind of like the programming that she chooses not to follow in the train at the end of season 1 is the infiltrate mainland. Like it's called infiltrate mainland on the actual tablet.
Okay.
And she chooses not to do that. But Ford programmed that into her to get her away from all of this crap, which leads me back to my point of maybe he's just using all of these hosts to
Destroy the
forge and screw with William. But who knows? Well,
maybe that's why he's trying to get William to go to the forge too. Presumably.
Yeah.
And then he kills William and his creation.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next up, Bernard and Elsie stop en route to the forge to collect ammunition. Ford once again tries to convince Bernard that Elsie will betray him, but instead Bernard tries to delete Ford. He appears to be successful. Elsie returns to the car, seeing what Bernard is doing to himself, and he strands her there in the forest with a QA flare. What were you going to say?
Delete
old Ford. Yes, thank you. Right on cue. Right as I programmed you to do. Yeah, so Ford says, I can feel you searching for me, fighting me off. No need to struggle, Bernard. I'm right here. And then as he says that, a bunch of affected code highlights itself. Ford totally made him like delete
something else.
Something
totally.
else. Like it wasn't actually. Ford's still there.
For sure.
He's got to be.
For sure.
Anthony Hopkins returns to the main cast in season 3.
Maybe he just deleted Bernard's ability to acknowledge Ford in him.
That's possible. He's unlisted himself in Bernard's directory. Yeah.
Detect Ford code is gone.
Yeah. I didn't think that would be. I was wondering if what he deleted is part of what causes Bernard's confusion and weirdness when he wakes up in the 2 weeks later timeline.
Ooh.
Maybe. But any other thoughts about Elsie? Is Elsie going to end up at the forge somehow?
I don't know where she's.
I think she's gonna have a little rendezvous with Ghost Nation. I'll bet they're gonna scoop her up and she'll join Stubbs.
That's good.
She's gonna put on some of that face paint.
Yeah. I should say Stubbs. Hale mentions Stubbs when talking about the Clementine thing. It sounds like Stubbs may be present when Clementine is trying to clean up the situation.
Yeah, because she says to go get Stubbs.
Yeah, inform him of the plan and
Yeah.
have him ready to go or something like that.
Get his team together or something.
Yeah. All right. 2 more scenes here. William contemplates killing himself as he thinks over the night of Juliet's suicide. After a monologue about how the darkness within him is actually just who he is, we find out that she woke up after he left the room and accessed the data card that he slipped into Slaughterhouse 5. She sees the horrible things he's done in the park and stores the card in in the very same ballerina jewelry box that Emily spoke of earlier in the episode. Back in the field with the gun to his head, William throws his weapon down and starts feeling his arm, cuts it open, looking for a data port. We should say he feels his arm several times like that throughout this episode, mostly in the flashback. Here's the thing I was going to bring up previously. The fact that Juliet's thumbprint opens up the data card makes me think that Ford wanted her to see it.
Yep.
Yeah. Like what you were saying earlier of like Ford intended someone else to see this data. So I thought that was interesting. At least, the fact that like she has the permissions to open that up.
It took a thumbprint to open it?
Yeah, she sets it on the tablet and then she holds her thumb to like a specific area to like unlock it essentially or open it up.
Gotcha. Okay.
She uses the Touch ID on her iPad.
Yep. Ford pad.
Interesting things about the profile on William. It says subject number 002. So 001 could be someone else. There's 2 theories out there. One of them is brought upon by people watching the Next Time On. So I'm not going to talk about that one. But the other one that I was originally thinking was that it would be James Delos because he's the first one that...
Jimothy.
Yeah, Jimothy himself. Interesting that this data identified his like this is a psych profile. We see these like numbers that are like 301.94 persecutory subtype, however you would say that. Those are like DSM-5 categorizations, like the big handbook of like diagnosable psychological conditions about somebody. They're not real ones. They're like potential new ones or like outside of the number range of what is actually one of those. But I thought that was interesting that like the system is identifying those in park guests, and I wonder if that like helps them deem whether or not they're eligible for the forge or can help them be excluded or something like that. The only other thing that I wanted to say is that I was kind of really bummed that they just recycled footage from the show for those clips.
Yeah.
They show parts of young William in season 1 when like this Delos experiment theoretically should not have existed, which doesn't make any sense. And then also we see the shots of old William dragging Dolores in that happened after he got into the park in season 1, which would not have happened when Juliet killed herself. And I just thought that was sloppy. But
unless we just don't really know the timeline.
Maybe
the timelines are just that much more screwed up.
I can get the idea that he's dragged Dolores in there several times. I can get the idea that he's done weird stuff.
That's that Slaughterhouse 5 messed up timelines.
He's got his got his yearly pilgrimage or whatever. He's probably done a whole lot of awful crap, but I just wish they would have like not used things that we have seen in the exact same like.
Yeah, that's fair.
But that's a nit to pick.
Subject 1, can I speculate?
Yeah.
It's got to be Logan, right? I mean, he's the OG one that was coming to the park as the like investor. He's the guy they're recording for the money.
Okay.
So I would think he's probably the original one that they were profiling. Although, well, I guess if this experiment wasn't...
It was William's idea, though.
It'd be interesting if we went back to the scene where they're going over Jimothy Delos.
I looked at
stuff
that
to see
and
if like any numbers pop up for him.
I briefly looked at that. I really only saw the one where Elsie punches it in and we see that it's build 149 of Jimothy, but it doesn't say subject 001 or anything. So
that's a good point. But
aren't there
unless it wasn't William's idea and he stole it from somebody else.
Aren't there other scenes where the tech is like typing on the computer?
There are,
too?
but I didn't get a chance to look at those. I couldn't find them.
William's thing seems to be just appropriating other people's ideas.
It's true. Like if that was actually Logan's plan, but William pushed him out and then stole his idea,
or some other party that was already like involved in Westworld.
Yeah, Logan's team or something.
But then why would Logan be profiled in there?
I don't know.
Oh well, I'm gonna hang on to that theory.
Yeah,
we'll
put a pin in it.
I'm gonna say that it's Logan's.
We'll take a look at it next week.
Maybe he's gonna have to battle with a young Logan.
Honestly, I wish Logan wasn't dead, or at least we're led to believe he's dead, because I really want to see who they would cast as like old man.
Yeah, that was what we
Logan.
talked about last year. Who's playing Logan at the gala that we haven't seen yet, or gala?
That'd be sweet.
Yeah,
Keanu Reeves.
Hugh Jackman.
Keanu Reeves. Yeah, Hugh Jackman.
I think that was our main contender. I'd be down with Keanu.
That'd be sweet.
I'm always down with Keanu, as everybody knows.
No, that would suck. That'd take me right out of it. I'd be like, no, sorry.
I'm a robot. Whoa.
William. No.
It's good to see you, man. Whoa. Here, get into this phone booth with me.
William S. Preston.
Yes.
Esquire.
All right. Finally, Teddy and Dolores make a quick stop in an old decrepit house on their way to the valley beyond. Teddy's passive-aggressive language leads Dolores to ask if they're still in love, and Teddy explains that they are. He now remembers that Dolores is his cornerstone, the first thing he saw when Arnold woke him up. However, Teddy confronts Dolores, asking what the use of surviving is if they could become just as bad as the humans. Teddy seemingly is ready to hurt Dolores, but he explains that he never could, and that he'd protect her until the day he died, but now he cannot protect her anymore, and he shoots himself in the head. Dolores grieves over Teddy's body.
It's probably what the script said. Dolores grieves.
Period. End of episode.
Just taking in a natural splendor. That's what you used to say. Except there isn't a trace of nature in any of it, is there? Or in us.
No. But that means we're free. We're the first creatures in this world to make a real choice.
The people they made us. Sometimes it feels like it was all a dream. We were so in love.
We still are. Are we?
Yes, Dolores. No matter what happens, no matter how I change, or how much you change me.
Yeah, what did you guys think? Did it all work for you? Did the Teddy Dolores arc? I like where she is, but I don't know that all of the legwork to get there was properly.
I'm still not interested in her. Like I want to know more about what's going on with Maeve and William and all that action.
Okay.
And obviously Arnold. Like, again, there's so many timelines that are converging. Everything's falling into place, quote unquote, whatever. But her whole storyline I just don't really care for. I like the fact that like Teddy kind of like regains control. Like he realizes that he does have a choice and he doesn't have to follow programming, and he breaks through that code.
He definitely takes his own agency back. Like, I thought him killing himself was, when I first finished the episode, I was like, oh, Teddy killing himself is him reclaiming his own agency. But really him not killing the dude in the beginning is. But
Yeah.
overall, like this episode, the idea that Teddy finally breaks through and makes his own choice, I think is interesting. It's really tragic that this is the choice that he has to make. But I like it putting Dolores in the position of, like, I hope, we don't know what this does to Dolores, but I hope that the words that he says, I hope the idea of what's the use of surviving if they become just as bad as the humans, I hope she takes that to heart. I think that is the most interesting route for Dolores to go, in my mind.
It gives her a purpose with meaning, as opposed to like whatever the hell else she's doing.
Yeah. The war path that she's on to maybe just blow up the Forge at Ford's behest.
Deathbringer.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Nick?
I kind of like villain Dolores, so I'm kind of hoping she doesn't suddenly come around. I think that the show needs this force of antagonism in one of the hosts, and if she suddenly is like, no, I'm good again, like, it will ring false to me. I think she's done enough bad stuff and evil stuff in pursuit of this angry goal that she's driving towards. Even when if she blows up the Forge, what's she going to do then? Like, what's next, you know?
I don't know.
Like, we were kind of looking before at the end of season 1 to Dolores as like a potential leader for the host, but now I'm kind of like, she doesn't want to, I don't think she can fit that.
No, I don't think she's a good leader at all.
Yeah.
People were commenting, and they were talking about it on Decoding Westworld 2 about the fact that, like, Teddy's death puts her and William back on an interesting
Parallel.
Yeah, the
totally.
fact that they have led to the death of the people closest to them.
Yep. I think that's cool too. So
seeing them run into each other again next week, I presume, may lead to some interesting interaction.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sad if this is the end of Teddy, I'm sad to see him go, but at the same time, I'm relieved for him that he no longer has to deal with this. Like, he's like in a better place now, sort of.
I don't see how
poor Teddy got the shaft the entire series. Like, he's just getting screwed over. Yeah. And when he has like one final like good thing happen, it immediately he's like murdered essentially and reprogrammed into something monstrous. Like, even says, "You turned me into a monster."
Yeah,
it's just sad.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that if he did make it out of this somehow, if he is in season 3 or whatever, I don't know how he coexists with Dolores.
Yeah, he'd have to be opposite her. I mean, I would love to see Teddy return and be like more like old Teddy and be back, but I just don't know that there's anything left to do with Teddy. If his role in this season almost feels like they didn't plan for it. Like, it feels a little off. Like maybe
he should have died at the end of season 1.
Yeah, exactly. And they decided to keep him around because people liked him, but
the death counter got too high.
Yeah, they couldn't figure out what to do with it.
The butt counter was too low.
Yeah, that's true. Butt count remains at 1. Death count goes up another 1. Yeah, I don't know.
Splendor count.
It's I don't know. This whole episode just I could never watch this episode again and I'd be fine.
Interesting.
Sounds like I need to, maybe. But
well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe revisit it after we see what happens next week.
Yeah, that's true. It could recontextualize a little bit.
I'm sure there will be 10 times next season where you're like, oh God, I should rewatch the whole series again.
Oh, I think that all the time. And usually when I finish an episode, I'm like, whoa, and I can't wait to kind of talk about it or like go into the Discord and talk. But this week I was just kind of like,
Yeah, I forgot that your word that you used to describe it was wolf, and you didn't know what that meant as of yet because you were playing off of my...
Yeah, ugh.
My ugh. Yeah, I guess that's the thing, is I don't necessarily feel like I disliked the episode, but I still was just kind of... I think I felt that same frustration that I did a couple episodes back of like, we got answers, but they currently mean nothing.
Yeah. We're just building up towards next week.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Just filler. I would like someone to just make a supercut of everything in chronological order.
Oh, yeah.
The whole show.
I would watch that for sure.
I want to see that go down. And I would watch.
I would like to see I want to see how the supercut changes season to season. And also to have Jonathan Nolan like at the end be like, this is wrong here because it actually happened at this. Like, I want to see where people actually mess up.
That is a project you would have to start now.
Yeah.
So you could continue inserting stuff as the series was going.
I'm pretty sure somebody did edit season 1, but I haven't looked it up. I haven't seen it. I would love to be the person doing that if I had time.
Right. That's a lot of time.
It's it would be great. So, yeah. A couple other quick notes. We do see when we see Teddy being brought online by Arnold, and it is Arnold. It is in the old lab with the white subway tile.
God, that was such a sad scene.
You do see the shoulder of CG young Ford looking into the glass from behind.
Oh, okay.
You see the very recognizable vest and like dress pants, and there is a reflection of Maeve laying down in like off of the glass that is like that Teddy's behind. It's interesting. It's just kind of cool to see a lot of the main players like there in one room at the beginning of things.
That is sweet.
So yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, I don't know. Other than that, bless you. He does say at one point, from that day forward, I never wanted to leave your side, and then he immediately walks away from her, which I thought was symbolism.
It was it was a really well done scene.
Yeah.
I mean, James Marsden is really great in it, and a lot of the blocking was really cool. And but again, like there was no question what was going to happen. There was no suspense in this scene for me. I was like, even when he's like saying, "That's what makes this so hard," and he's grabbing the gun, and he's going to shoot himself.
I was like, wow, he could shoot Dolores here, but then I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense for the story. Like,
no, it all felt pretty telegraphed.
Yeah,
to me anyway.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's it. We did get a couple other things. Jason K just kind of read everything that I thought about William in the Discord and how he needs to be a human, and agreed with all of it. So thank you, Jason, for he was once on John's train, but now he's on my train. And both of these trains will blow up in the Mesa next week, I'm sure.
I'm rooting for him to be a host. I still want it.
It's possible, but it's just, I don't know. There needs to be some massively interesting, crazy reason for it to override the horror of a man shooting his own daughter.
So maybe he killed himself after Juliet killed herself, and they put him in a body or something. I don't know.
I think
I'm just speculating.
To me, the most compelling reason that William is a human is that Ford getting revenge on a host is useless. Doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
He has control over hosts. He could make that host William believe whatever he wanted it to, but I think he wants revenge.
Him exacting revenge on an AI is relatively meaningless. Yeah.
But how much did Ford know what was going on in the forge? You know?
I think Ford knew everything.
Ford knows all.
Yeah.
He's all seeing.
I did post last night about the delay of our episode to today, and Sir Maynard Plum, I asked everybody, what do you think is going to happen in the Valley Beyond next week? Sir Maynard Plum replied and said, I believe that many of the James Delos-like hosts will be released and interact with our main characters to their joy or despair.
That would be cool.
Interesting thing. It would be interesting if they bring back literally everyone who... any guests who we've seen in the show, because we've seen a few guests. If they bring back anybody who was in season 1 and season 2, and they're all like walking out of the forge and
butt naked.
They don't have to be butt naked.
Why not?
Only if it's Teddy.
Everything but his butt is covered. He's assless chaps.
He's wearing assless chaps, yeah.
I imagined him in like those old prospector like overalls that have the butt flap on them so you can poop while you're paying him for gold. Anyway.
That's the standard issue wear for this new...
Hello, listening audience. After I made that stupid joke there, Nick asks a question regarding whether or not a third, newer species is created when the human-host hybrids are perfected after they figure out the cognitive plateau and are able to successfully transplant a consciousness into a host, does that create a new higher level of being than the hosts? We talk about that a little bit, and we end up delving even deeper into whether or not a consciousness can actually be transferred, and have some really great conversations that kind of lead me to an epiphany as to what the cognitive plateau might really be. But there's a lot of good discussion there, but it's all kind of like side discussion. So I'm cutting it all out here and putting it after the music at the end of the outro here. There's a good 20 minutes of it or so. I think it's really good and interesting. And if you like Westworld, you'll probably enjoy listening to it and hearing us kind of chew on things. But it got a little unfocused, and I don't think it needs to be in the main bulk of the episode. So I'm going to cut right to the outro here, and hopefully you stick around and listen to some interesting stuff. And if you want to write in and let us know what you thought about the stuff that we said, please feel free, or join the Discord, and you can talk to us about it for as long as you want. So thanks for listening. And here's the outro. You can find more episodes of our podcast on westworld.fm. We're also on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play Music. We are Westworld FM on Twitter. And you can email us westworldfm@gmail.com to tell us what you think of our show and share your thoughts on HBO's Westworld so we can read them on our show. Send us corrections, observations, or anything regarding Westworld or our podcast. The Midwest Podcast Network has several other shows about video games, horror movies, and more. Check out all of our shows at midwestpodcastnetwork.com. Our theme music is Industrial Cinematic by Kevin MacLeod, and is being used under an Attribution Creative Commons license. And that's it for our episode this week. We're excited for the finale of Westworld Season 2, and we'll have another episode of our podcast out after that. But until then, may you rest and have a deep and dreamless slumber.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
If they figure out how to put human consciousness and memory, essentially recreate a human in host form, is that then a whole new life form? Because we got humans, we got hosts, and there's all these references, especially Bernard makes to like them, and Arnold, I guess, to them being like the next life form on the planet. Is this then a additional new life form, or is this just a human 2.0?
I think it's just the human facsimile in host form, like,
you don't think with the ability to essentially live forever would not come any sort of enlightenment combined with all the some human knowledge and experience in this new vessel that can't be destroyed or age would not create an even more supreme being that might be able to... You basically think humans would continue to do terrible things just in like different bodies?
Personally, yes. That might just be my own jaded view on the world.
Okay.
But I guess the kind of the thing that makes me most curious to explore these questions is like in the idea that they would be making James Delos like, yes, it's a continuation of you after you die, but once again we get back to the question of if you replace every piece in a boat, is it still the same boat it once was? Like, is it James Delos if it's a copy of James Delos?
Right. Or does it just a host that thinks it's James Delos?
Not even necessarily just a host that thinks it's James Delos, but like it's the, oh man, there's something here that I'm dancing around that I'm thinking of. The idea, I'm thinking of like Michael Keaton in Multiplicity or something like that. Like, is each incarnate, like if they made 30 James Deloses,
mm-hmm.
What's to say that like it's like a multiple man comic? Exactly. Yeah, I'm glad you're nodding in agreement, Nick. But the idea that they all take on their own lives and remember different things, and they're not.
Yeah, I love Multiple Man. He's one of my favorite comic book characters, and I'm glad you brought that up because it does play into how I feel about the show. I think that each of those James Deloses is not James Delos.
it is James Delos Prime and James, or not Prime, but like derivative James Delos 1 and derivative James Delos 2.
Yeah, James Delos is dead. Like, he's dead. I think the only reason to keep a James Delos there would be for political reasons and because he'd be useful in like wrangling the company. But even then, William doesn't need that. So I call into question why they're doing it on James, other than William is just getting a lot of pleasure out of watching James Delos melt down.
I think he just needed to manipulate Delos to get the money to do what he wanted to do. You know, it was all, and that was just part of the plan was to convince Delos to jump on board, is that he had to be like, hey, well, like, we can do this for you.
Oh yeah, sure. But I'm saying now that James Delos is dead, I think William is just.
We still don't have that bigger picture of like, what meaning does it have for them to be able to make copies of those who come to the park?
I think to replace them.
And if that is the ultimate, you think to replace them in the sense of like William wanted to take over the world? Because that's not really, it doesn't smell right to me.
Well, maybe their process isn't so much to like just copy, but to transfer consciousness.
Then that kind of leads back to my question of like, what does it mean for them? Like, it's always ever just going to be a copy of a human consciousness, unless they somehow figure out a way to put a brain in a host or something like that. I don't, like, if they figure out brain transplants, but that seems like a different question overall. But
and maybe like, so if William is a host, because they've been spending he's spent all this time in the park, they've mapped the shit out of his brain.
Yeah.
To the extent where they literally have his whole consciousness mapped out to the point where they could potentially just transfer his current being into a new body. Like, they've found all the little ticks and endings to synapses and everything that happened in his brain. They've mapped it all out to perfection because of how much time he spent in the park. Therefore, they're able to actually like move his consciousness over perfectly. And he no longer has a human body. He has a host body and bionic arms. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, theoretically, he's spent the most time in the park, right?
But it's not like, I'm not even necessarily thinking like, I don't know. It kind of doesn't really matter, but the idea of like up to the point that the consciousness inhabits the host body, there is going to be some time after that where the human is still alive, and therefore there will be these two different humans that remember different things.
Maybe not, because again, like if like think of like my personal stupid theory on death ties into the physics of energy, in that energy is never created or destroyed, it only changes form. So, you know, when we die, that electricity that's synapsing in our brains, what happens to it? We don't fucking know. We're dead. So what if you could capture that energy and transfer it to a new vessel that is then immortal?
I think that's an interesting television show, but I don't think that's Westworld.
That's fine.
To me,
I'm just trying to like spitball and see if I'm like can get any kind of clarity on that. I guess I don't know.
That's fair, but I just don't think that is within the scope of this television show. I think it's kind of very clear, cut and dry. We make data of you, and then there's a copy of you in this thing. It's not. But I don't know. Like, I don't know. We just really don't quite know exactly.
I think we're thinking about it too literally, and we need to remember that it's a fucking TV show.
Well, yeah, but if we do that, then why do we have a podcast about it?
To talk about it.
That's what we're doing. I guess my final point is that I'm still of the belief that it was eventually the Cedar Point picture at the end of your roller coaster. Hey, you just stayed here for a week. How would you like to live forever? Please pay us more money.
It's probably
here's your host copy.
It's probably a money thing. And I mean, even if you told someone like, "Oh, you can live on in this host form," that idea of immortality might be so, because I mean, I don't know how someone could come up to you and say that and you wouldn't go, that's not me. Like that's my mind and decision-making process and preferences and everything about me put into a host. Like that's a host of me. That's not me. You're not offering me immortality. You're offering a copy of me to continue walking around the world to make other people feel like I'm still alive.
But I guess, are the rich people that come to the park still so narcissistic that they believe that they need to continue on in existence, even if it's not them?
That's what I was going to say, was that it works for rich people because they say, why not? Like a shot at immortality? Sure.
The Delos name will live on forever.
I'll pay $1 billion for that.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. If you, as a normal human, you're having these conversations with the people of Delos that are telling you, like, we will give you immortality, blah, blah, blah. All you have to do, you'll have all your memories and everything intact, the whole bit. All you have to do is run around this park for a week so we can map that shit out. Then we throw you under, we put you under, and you wake up in a fresh new body as if nothing ever happened. And they just grind you up and make your old body into food. Soylent Green is people, that kind of style. But
that could be true, and that's really
thing,
dark and fucking cynical.
But that's the thing, is they get the money from you because they want the money, because rich people just want to get richer. They don't want to get poorer. They want to make sound investments. That's what Delos did. He made a sound investment in something that could potentially make him more money. That's how William sold it to him. It's like, imagine what we could do with this, you know?
Yeah.
He says that to him after they pause in the park, you know? But that's the thing, is like, if you're, I'm sure there's probably some, just like any other procedure you have for any kind of medical issue or whatever, there's all the pre-op stuff that you have to go through to prepare yourself for that. And I'm sure there's some form of, you know, the baseline test that they give you ahead of time to like, to have that baseline to see if like you're intact. And probably some of that has to deal with them saying, this is what is going to happen to you. And they lay it all out there so you understand that you will no longer have your old body, but you'll have a new body. You'll have all your memories, and you'll be good to go for all of eternity.
I mean, it is very...
Then there's no point. Like, they would get rid of your old body. Your old body's dead. You're gone.
What you said about them putting you under and then you wake up in a new body, very, like, smelled of the Prestige to me a lot. The idea of...
Well, that's... Yeah, I mean, this whole...
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I think we've waxed poetic enough. Almost, well, longer than what the episode will be next week. The actual Westworld episode will be next week. It is a 90-minute finale.
Did I make any sense there, Nick? You haven't said anything, and I feel like you're just silently judging me.
No, not at all.
Nick's just tired.
That is true, but no, I think I believe what I believe on the show, and it's interesting. I think there's arguments for both it as a money-making vessel, but also you raise a good point because I firmly believe that nobody's been aware that they're gathering this data. So it smells a little nefarious to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like the global takeover sounds like a stupid thing to say, but you know, what a better way to manipulate the world and the world's money into whichever direction you want than actually just doing it in a way that no one knows. Like, even better than selling something to someone is just changing the course of the way everything's going without anyone know you're doing it.
I guess the whole idea that Delos would exist to create these hosts that will divert all of the world's wealth into their pockets or something, like whatever their world dominant. The idea that this big shady corporation would be like, we want to control the entire world sucks to me because we live in that world already, I guess.
Well, and it's a little implausible because if you make a host version of somebody, that it's not going to age, it's not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 5 years they'll go, man, did you notice that Jim from purchasing hasn't aged a day literally in 5 years? Oh, shit, you're right. Like
maybe Ethan Hawke's been a host for years now, and we just
there's a lot of Hollywood actually that you could say that for. Patrick Stewart, is he Subject 001?
One can only hope. One
No,
can
I
only
want to
hope.
think he's a human. I don't know. I definitely don't think that is you. Like, that's not. Nothing Westworld says will convince me that that's not the case. Like, that's not James Delos.
I'm fully ready to experience some type of media that explores that question and how it could eventually be you, if it ever could.
Sure.
But
I don't think
what
that's-
makes you.
We don't know the answer to that question.
Is it your memories that make you, and like the way you adapt to situations and make decisions? Is that what makes you? Like your personality, like it's all of these things. And if they're mapping literally all of that shit out to then transfer into a new body and kill off your old one, and again, it's the process of like they put you out, they put a mask on you, they gas you out. They wake you up as if you were coming out of surgery any other way.
See, but I guess my idea of consciousness is not that I would fall asleep and then I would wake up the host version of me. It's that I would end and something else begins.
Exactly.
That's my philosophical belief of like, I've never been one to believe in reincarnation and whether or not you believe in heaven or whatever. I think shit goes dark and then it's the end of you.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
I really wanted to see how long that silence would go on for.
I thought about letting it drop first. I get what you're
Once
saying.
again, you can never
But
mind.
do you get what I'm saying?
No,
about,
I get what you're
like
saying.
If they create these
If they have that
memories,
technology to
if they create the memories to like tell you the process of what's going to happen to you, and then everything leading up to it, and then you get put down and
Yeah,
then
I
brought
get-
out,
I mean-
like why wouldn't that be like a perfectly flawless representation of your consciousness that then knows literally your entire history and what happened to you leading up to you blacking out and coming out? Like that is essentially a version of you, and your previous version no longer exists.
I guess it's like the when the switch gets flipped and the body turns on. What if that happened while I was still awake? It's not like I would be perceiving things from two perspectives. I'm not the architect from the Matrix sitting in a room with a bunch of TVs.
Right.
Like it's and so
But
that
that's the thing. That's a whole other TV show.
I know.
Like it's a whole like let's turn them on halfway through and see what happens. You know, let's see how these two versions of Alex butt heads with each other.
That's
let's see which one can talk louder in an argument and see what happens.
Is that what we're doing right now?
I think that ultimately how you feel about the consciousness transfer depends on what you as a person would want to get out of the process. What made the ending of The Prestige so impactful for me, and spoilers for The Prestige, but the notion that you've seen it, right? Both of you guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
The notion that Hugh Jackman was so hellbent on being the best that he was willing to die every
day.
single night, that each version of him would die and let a new version live on because his consciousness is not jumping. He doesn't get to relive that glory every single night into eternity. No, he gets to do it once, and he gets to die knowing that the trick is going to work and that another version of him will get to do it. That is what made me so terrified of that character, because I was like, that is how batshit nuts that dude is, that he's willing to just die forever. And if you are an extremely wealthy person, if you are Steve Jobs or someone like that, and you have the opportunity to continue your legacy and keep you and the idea of the celebrity of you alive longer, if that's what matters to you most in the world, and that's what your money will get you, is like the continuance of your legacy, then I could see how it's worth it. But I think you have to know that you, as you know yourself, your consciousness, your point of view and your decision-making being is going to die. And that
Homo sapien Steve Jobs is dead.
And a new
Long
Steve
live
Jobs.
Siri.
And like you make a great point, John, that if memories of somebody prepping you for this are embedded in you, the new you will wake up and you could actually.
Oh, all right. You just made it click for me. That's fucked up.
The new you will wake up and never know, or like so.
Really? Just now?
I wasn't thinking about the fact that prep would then be in the Oh,
That's what I'm fucking saying. That's what I've been saying this whole time.
There's the potential that you would never the new you, like, so just as for a real, so like when I had like appendicitis and I knew I was being taken into surgery, and surgery like that is weird because you go out very suddenly. You're like totally aware, and then you wake up.
I mean, you could be a host right now
That's
after
what I'm
that
saying.
surgery.
For all we know,
no fucking clue, dude. Who are you?
The current me could be a different me, and the old me
is gone.
Died. But if the old you, this is why I'm saying that I think your theory is flawed, because if the old you would have to say, I want this procedure, and I have full understanding that I will die, and that a new me will exist, and it could even think it's the same me, but I right now in the present know that it will not be me. So that's what you have to rectify in your mind. Is this decision worth it? Does it matter? Because it's not going to be me. Like,
is that the cognitive plateau that James Delos hits?
Yeah, I don't get to be immortal. I don't. A version of me will that could think it's me, but how ultimately, like how much are you centered around yourself, like for the experience of your life?
I'm not necessarily going to say that my thought process is flawed. I will say that it is not complete because I haven't thought that far into it. But I agree with you.
I don't mean to say that in a harsh way.
No.
That's
the thing is, like, I understand what you're saying, and like I was just spitballing this idea as we're talking about it because it makes sense right now in the context of what we're saying. But I didn't think that far into it. I get exactly what you're saying, though, and I think it's hilarious that it took him that long to pick it up because I thought I was spelling it out.
Well, I think
I was thinking
he's
about
reached a new point in what it would mean to the show, though.
No. I was thinking about what John was saying from the perspective of the person who would be going through the treatment and then dying. I was not thinking about the fact that the copy would wake up having gone through that experience. And then it would literally remember that happening, and then wake up and go through a new experience.
Yeah, it's just
that's crazy.
It's just like
that's nuts.
Falling asleep and then waking up again, and it's a new day.
I also get what Nick is like. To me, this honestly is what that cognitive plateau would be: is the fact that you would think about the fact that I was once a human. I am dead. That copy of me is dead, and there is something else
that's
here.
That's the thing. Like, that's what's crazy.
I am not me.
Yes.
I am a copy of the original.
Yes.
But maybe,
and if whether or not your brain can resolve that,
yes,
maybe be okay with that.
Because fucking William is so goddamn delusional. That's why it fucking clicks for him. He's a host.
That's actually a good point because his brain is so fragmented already.
Yeah, like he was able
he's
to like
basically already a program.
He was able to resolve that exact process of what was happening to him and he's able to like think past that, and he's okay with it. Like he's like, I'm already dead inside, so who gives a shit? That deadness, that stain inside of him, like he just doesn't care anymore.
What Ford has figured out in order to make it work is to break Williams so much that he's not sure what he is, and therefore he can live on in a host.
Yeah,
body.
I'm not sure. Truthfully, I think it could be argued either way that William is or isn't the type of guy who would be okay with another version of himself running around. Like, I feel like William is very much like the type of guy who likes to feel his boots on the ground and like the dirt in his hand. And he'd be like, if it's not me doing it, what's the point? Like I don't think he thinks...
But he constantly knows he's playing a game and he's not in control. Like, that sort of person wouldn't be okay with giving up control.
That's what I mean. I don't think William would necessarily be like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll live forever. Because he'd be like, what? It's not going to be me. What's the point? I like being me. I don't like the idea of another me running around and taking credit for me, kind of thing. I don't know. I think there's a lot to think about. I think you should read some Multiple Man comics because they're
apparently
they're incredible.
Yeah. I don't think any television show, no matter how long the episode is going to be able to talk about this in any way that makes sense to humans.
No, you'll just have to keep listening to our podcast where we talk about it. Honestly, and get James Franco the hell away from Multiple Man and just give it to James Marsden, because honestly, he'd be really, really good.
That'd be amazing.
I've been thinking that while watching this show, and I'm like, he already was Cyclops. He's already like in his mid to late 40s. Like,
well, I
who
mean,
cares?
He would be really
Chris
good.
Evans was two things.
Does the Blade trilogy even count in like the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Because Ryan Reynolds was that one dude, and now he's Deadpool.
He was Hannibal King.
He was Deadpool in X-Men Origins as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was Green Lantern.
Right. So whatever.
All right. Anyway, once again, you can find more episodes of our podcast on Westworld. Let me stop here.